call the meeting to order at 1:00 p.m. And I'd like to state our traditional lands acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge and respect Indigenous people within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. So we have an agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? It's moved and seconded in the room here. Any adjustments, additions? Seeing none, we'll vote on it. All those in favor? Is there any opposition? Seeing none, we have an agenda. We've got the minutes. I don't know if anyone noticed anything they'd like brought to the attention. They did go to the court, so they are our minutes. All right, well, I want to acknowledge we have many staff here, so thank you, staff, for being here, your reports, detailed information you're providing to us. It's quite awesome. So we'll move on to item number 3.1, which is the proposed resource recovery facilities regular. Could you change that, Todd, for next year?
What do you call it?
Over to you, Todd. Take us away.
Thank you, Chair. So last month I was here with a for information report only on proposed changes to the bylaw. Went through a number of the changes to the organics definitions and regulations. We had discussions about mattresses, solar panels, a lot of administrative cleanup. And so that is reflected in attachment A, which is the red line version of this bylaw. So hopefully people have had a chance to have a look at that. What wasn't included in that for information report was any proposed changes to the tipping fees, because obviously that is a financial planning exercise that is not part of what I do. So the recommendation taken from those financial planning sessions is now in this report. And as a recommendation, we're asking for a 6.4% increase to most materials in the bylaw. And that's a 4%, which is aligned with a 5-year incremental increases options from the systems efficiency study, and a 2.4% increase to match inflation. One difference though in those pricings is organic waste. The recommendation is to proceed with a 2.4% increase only to match that with inflation, but to not have that same level of increase. And the reasons being that we want to continue to strongly incentivize and build upon our organics diversion program. I don't have much to say with this. I went through that. Oh, there are just a couple of minor changes to note that weren't presented in the for information report. Most of them just technical, but municipal wastewater biosolids has been removed from Schedule A2 and A3 because we're only looking to take municipal wastewater biosolids at the central composting facility, and that will be on a trial basis. And I believe we had some discussion, but happy to take questions or have a discussion on that. So that's a technical difference in that red line version. And also in Schedule C, which is the control schedule, there's a piece in there about requiring lab testing before any of these biosolids come to our facility. And that's pretty well spelled out in the rest of the bylaw. And just a minor correction, changing the name from Nicusp Landfill to Nicusp Transfer Station. So everything else is in the report, and a lot of it has been discussed in the for information. So I will bring that back for any questions, comments.
I have, excuse me, Director Jackman on the speakers list. So I'm just checking chat. So go ahead, Gary. Director Jackman.
So understandably, you've got 2026 pretty well dialed in, and all municipalities, as discussed in several meetings, even that they should be discussing their fees for utility billing, waste billing, and stuff in January. What's come up though during the conversations, and it's a little different, everything's a little variable from regular, East, our volumes received in 2025 were lower than expected. You have fall off in construction activity, or what that might occur, maybe some economic repercussions or something somewhere. And in the west, I know you are looking at Virginia, a lot of capital work, which is difficult to project the pricing, but meeting our cost recovery targets was based on a conversation a couple of years ago, so forecast a few years ago, so easy. We're not gonna need to if our volume staying along that line with the last year. Then who knows what's gonna happen, but I fully expect if I see it in any meetings and hear concerns about raising taxation in the west. So the other mechanism for major cost recovery and some zero was discussion was the fees and charges. So just looking to when we would have a conversation, revisit, took the long, instead of 3 years, took the 5 years, slowly come up to our targets for cost recovery. If we think we're not gonna make it, or taxation is gonna be too heavy, would it be appropriate for us to revisit the 2027, 2029 projections, say by June 2026? That makes sense, or should we look at it sooner? I know our municipal partners want to know we're having a conversation.
Over to you, staff.
Yes, through the chair, I think midway through next year, we'll have the final numbers for this year and we'll have enough of next year's tonnage that we can try and forecast for 26 and see where that trend in volumes or tonnages is landing us. And then make a decision on whether or not we want to stay tracked on this 5-year cost recovery plan or change it. And I think most municipalities I like this information by September, October, like early fall. So I think if we have that discussion in the summer and then have a decision on whether, because right now all of the 3 waste services are projecting the same 6.4 this year, and then they're tracking that 4.44 and then 3 in the 5th year, but they're only using a 2% inflation. So next year is 6%, and then 27 is 6%, and all the way through until 2030 had a 5% increase. So they're currently expecting those increases, but if we want to increase it beyond that, or inflation is higher, then I think that maybe a mid-year discussion about whether or not we want to inform the municipalities and some of the commercial clients that they should expect higher than projected increase.
Yeah. I see nothing in chat. No. Okay, so maybe we do have 2 recommendations. No. Go ahead.
I was hoping I was gonna get the answer before. So I'm just gonna go with you talk about lab testing. What does that look like for the waste? The dry cake, the salmon and Cascar.
Yeah, through the chair. So what we're doing right now is working with the city of Nelson to see how biosolids composting can work and whether we can do it safely and effectively and whether we have a good end use market. And the parameters that we will be asking for, well, actually they've already provided us with, are aligned with the organic matter recycling regulations. So it's looking at pathogens, like fecal coliforms, looking at metals, and there's a host of others. And we've kind of gone probably over and above because we have concerns about PFAS contamination, although that's not cited in those sets of regulations. Overall, compared to what we used to ask for several years ago when we initially launched a biosolids program where we were intending to use it as a soil cover, we were going with the contaminated sites regulations, and typically most of those maximum allowable concentrations are lower. So in theory, the organic matter recycling regulations should be easier to achieve acceptable levels for coming in. And one other piece with that, the biosolids used to come in from a municipality that wanted us to use it as a soil. We would test it at the condition it was in, but it would be unchanged. With a composting facility, there will be some dilution and some other stuff. So really where we're regulated is meeting those OMAR regulations after we processed it. But we still wanna have a baseline of testing that's gonna be workable for us, and that will be some trial and error to determine what we can actually work with through our processes.
Supplementary. So I have a huge concern about the whole thing, for the simple fact is, so municipalities already go through testing, and if anything is over and above, we're to phone the ministry that's responsible for that immediately, and all of that kind of stuff. So we go through extensive regulations to be able to do that cake, to be able to produce that cake in the first place. And then now we're being told that we can't bring it to Otishania, and we're gonna have to do more testing in order to bring it to. So what happens if it is not in the lab testing that you require? What does Salmon Cascar do?
Okay, I have a few comments on that. For one, we are taking it for landfilling, and we would continue to do so
Okay.
if we couldn't go through that process.
Okay.
And Salmo doesn't do testing on their solid, it's actually a sludge. There's a difference between a biosolid and a sludge. All your testing is done on your liquid effluent.
Yeah.
You have no testing on your solids. And but one thing that we would likely do, and of course, we'll learn this as we get into this, but it's not that every load would have to be tested, because the testing is more on us for our end product that we're producing.
Okay.
So we would try and work out something that was realistic and doable. So in other words, we would characterize it and periodically have testing. So, cause it would be so expensive to be testing that stuff with every load coming through.
Yeah.
That would not be realistic.
Okay,
Can I add a couple of things? So it's essential that we know our input materials, because if our output materials don't achieve Class B, all we do, we are created after a long process, a compost that we then haul to the Chenier for disposal, right? So Class B is a must achieve for us, and the testing will help us to determine how we can and what the raw material is. There's another difficulty for us is, as you already pointed out, is we are allowed to accept biosolids, but not sludge. Biosolids has a definition about pre-treatment, and we are still, I believe, still working with the regulator to see how serious that requirement is. But it's not like you can take sludge out, just get it to a certain dryness, and then can put it in through a composting facility. There's other parameters that need to be met, and that's one of the reasons why we are working with City of Nelson, which has that pre-treatment component in place.
okay. Last time, it's just a comment. So when municipalities are asked to take areas product, because we've been talked about that a $25 million plant to be able to do all of the area product, and then we do this on top of municipalities. Is there going to be help in order for municipalities to bring it up to a standard for everybody to be able to have that go into municipalities as we try and get rid of the thing that's over at Otis Junior where it's dumped on the ground and however it's dealt with?
Sorry,
Right,
Madam Chair,
like-
can you elaborate on the $25 million?
Well, that was just what it was, that when we did, it was an estimate that it would cost $25 million to build a plant to do all of the areas, or do we try and get municipalities to up their systems to be able to take all the electoral areas effluent and our parks and all of that kind of stuff? So that's where I think the partnership has been coming through, is that municipalities have been trying to do this, but now we're talking about, it's just Salmon Cascar right now, of having to do more to be able to get rid of it. Like, I don't know, well, yeah,
May not be part of the regulatory, but it could be another issue rather than actually putting this bylaw through.
yeah, I just see problems going down the road as a partnership.
Right, so
That
talk to the
municipalities-
chairs
Yeah.
and staff and we'll get an
Yeah.
agenda item and get it
Yeah.
clear and then start, dealing with it that way.
I can just see, sorry, through the chair, that municipalities are gonna say, no, we're gonna deal with our own, and electoral areas need to deal with theirs.
If I may, that's what City of Castlegar currently is doing. They are shipping their materials out, correct?
Correct.
So yet they are interested in this partnership because there's benefits to them if they are able to dispose of the materials this way. Like the economic reasons, I'm guessing, but so it's not like that's the only option, right? And some are already forced to haul the materials long ways. We are just trying to establish an additional option for everyone here. You are still open until we are still accepting materials at the Otishini landfill, and for foreseeable time, we'll do so.
Okay.
You thought it was just numbers. You're scientists here now. It's amazing. Thanks for the question. All right. Is there someone willing to move the recommendation? So we have mover and seconder. Is there any discussion on recommendation number one only? Well, I guess we can do both. Yeah, because we're here. So you okay with both, Ian?
There's a lot, sure.
As a block? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposition? Seeing none, thank you. Thanks. Oh, see if this one's easier. 3.2, construction, demolition, renovation, waste, no, it wasn't actually, multi-material diversion pilot, entire RDCK. Please go ahead, Todd.
Thank you, Chair. Also like to point out that Alex Leclar is here as well, and this is a joint partnership between City of Nelson and RDCK. So Alex has done a lot of the groundwork and research into this pilot that we're proposing. So he will be here to pick up technical questions that are involved with work that he did.
Point of order, but because we had this conversation before, Alex is also a staff member. We granted him freedom before as a Nelson staff member representing, or just Jerry.
I believe he's an RD staff person on this item.
Jerry, reaction to the chair, you're representing the city of Nelson on this item.
Oh, then freedom of
Freedom of
report.
report.
We have a
Nelson
motion
staff
to put on the
member.
floor for Alex. It's moved in second. Thanks, Director Jackman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposition, none. Alex, welcome. Speak up. Speak up. Okay, thanks.
So similar to the report I just presented on, Alex and I did a for information only report in October. I was actually sick, so I was remote, and Alex carried the weight of that presentation. But much of the information was provided at that point, and that report is appended to this report. So this is really just a follow-up. Our intention here is to secure funding for both the City of Nelson and LG Cap, a total of $20,000 in grants, two $10,000 grants. And just a couple of key points for this. We feel Nakusp is an ideal site with its recent closure, where we're looking for more ways to divert and decrease our transfers. It's also situated in a more ideal situation than, say, Udashenia in terms of proximity to markets in Quesnel and Calgary for the materials that we're looking to divert from landfilling and get recycled. So just a couple of points there. Since October, we've reduced the number of materials that we're looking at to glass and drywall. We were looking at asphalt originally, but the technology that we were looking at not economically viable or really even up and running yet. I will note, and this was noted in the report also, staff are very interested though in potentially grinding some of that asphalt for road base. And we've had reductions in the amount of wood that we're grinding, so it might work, but that's separate from this pilot, but it would certainly meet the same objective. So construction demo, it's a significant contributor to our tonnage in landfills every year. And, with these materials, well, drywall just alone, we estimate around 20% of the construction demo waste is made up of drywall. Another thing about drywall is it's been recycled for decades. New West Gypsum has been in business since the 70s, and they're a very strong advocate. All the coast waste management construction demo sessions that I go to, there's often an advocate from there. They've got a facility in Calgary. They really know what they're doing, and they work hand in hand in a leadership way with local governments. So it's there. We also have a lot of other regional districts and local municipalities that have these programs in place. There's a lot of lessons learned there, so it kind of makes sense. And it also feeds in with a resource recovery plan commitment that we have to develop better screening and hazardous waste assessments. So I think because drywall can contain asbestos, usually just in the mudding on the sides, that this will put us in a better position. And as a sideline, I am in conversations with WorkSafe BC on potentially setting up a system where we can capture drywall or asbestos containing waste in the cusp. So hopefully those two will dovetail, but that in itself is not part of the scope. So anyways, we've presented a lot of the information. We feel that along with glass, which we've got a facility in Quesnel, and they actually have very reasonable rates, and we've spoken with them, and they seem very willing and flexible to deal with this as we bump along with this. But really, we're looking at setting up a very small laboratory here to learn and find out what is economically feasible, and if we can have a success and retrieve and achieve cost neutrality or something close to cost neutrality, then we would like to follow up with some recommendations to expand this to our larger sites with much larger volumes. There's lots of backhaul opportunities between New Britannia and the cusp, but we're going to really start off small. And the emphasis here is not to, we know we're not going to have huge tonnages generated in the cusp. This really is, just a good situation to learn from, to expand. So Alex, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? I'll leave it at that and open it up to questions.
Okay, so okay, great. Clarence Cole and then Director Weatherhead. Go ahead, Aiden. Director Clarence Cole.
Thank you, Chair. And through the chair, just wanted to thank staff for this project. I think it's a really innovative initiative, and we're happy to host it here in the cusp. And I just wanted, I know it's in the report, but I just wanted to highlight the communications to local contractors. And it's a small pool of people, so it's not hard to get a hold of everybody here. But just to make sure that the education piece is a strong part of the rollout, we'd appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Weatherhead.
Thank you. Sorry, I pressed. Thank you. Just one question, and then I do have some information as well to share with you. My question being that, so is the idea for this pilot that the waste from elsewhere brought to the cusp? Is that right?
Through the chair, not through this pilot. This would just be NACUSP to start. Just what's generated in NACUSP. If successful and logistics and economics suggest trying to expand elsewhere, that could be potential. Be bringing materials from, say, Ushenia up to NACUSP on a backhaul, and then meeting up with the transportation that heads to on the Trans-Canada to these recyclers could be an efficient model.
Thank you. So, and then supplemental, the Arrow Lakes Ready Mix there that you're familiar with, too, that is equipment that they have looked into purchasing. And they have estimated that, depending on volume, it could employ 2 more staff for them as well. And one of those staff would be just basically a button pusher, so it could be someone with diverse needs. And they also see that potentially the growth could expand them to up to 8 or 10 employees over the various in the future. So that they are very motivated. They've been looking into this for some time to understand that they could be taking a class, so.
Alex,
Through the chair, I mean, I think we'd be really excited to work with some of the local as the end user of the product. And then the pilot is to find opportunities to leverage these materials. And I work closely with Nelson Readymix on a number of projects, and they're not ready to recycle glass, but United Concrete is often bringing products to these ready mixes, and whether it's glass as a supplementary cementitious material or other additives, they're already connected to these groups. So I think if there's an opportunity to support that recycling in the region, I think that would be exciting.
I'm just supplement to that, not sure of the volume at this.
Could I just do a test? Is everyone able to hear? I'm just noticing. It's all good. Okay, sorry, I was wondering if you were just speaking a bit quietly. Go ahead.
That at this point in the pilot, I would want there to be communication with that company, whether it is the right time for them to invest, and that's one. Said I could give you their information.
So Alex, both of you go ahead. So go ahead, Todd, and then Alex. You work it out. How about that?
Well, we know Isaac because he had a landfill contract.
It's ready to extend any longer, so it's Mason Jones.
Oh.
And so yeah, Isaac's still involved to some degree, but Mason Jones has taken over the aggregate business. Okay.
Yeah, through the chair, we're not tied to any recycling facility or contractor yet at this point in the pilot, but I'm totally happy to follow up with Aaron.
Great. So we have two people on the speakers list, Director Vandenberg, Director Papa. Director Vandenberg.
Thank you, through the chair. So when we talked about the glass and the ability to recycle it perhaps into a concrete product, I did reach out to Sullivan Stone, and they make concrete blocks and barriers, so it's nothing for them to batch mix it in. And so they'd be receptive to talking further about it. Of course, Carl's saying, well, how much are we talking about? And of course, I have no idea to know what that really means and is it significant enough. But what I'm suggesting to you is that if you did reach out to Sullivan, he is aware, but we've already had a chat about it.
For sure. I just hired Sullivan Stone to do some septic moving for us in Creston, so I know Rob and those guys, and so you have to give them a call.
Nice.
Carl is the guy you probably want to.
Perfect. So, go ahead. So
Yeah, so supplemental to the chair, I just wanted to say, this pilot is discovering if there's an opportunity to collect the materials and how much we're gonna get. And yeah, it would be really exciting to not have to transport that material to Cornell or Calgary, and that's a large portion of the cost of the pilot is the trucking. So if we can minimize that, I think it would be really beneficial.
go ahead. It's probably important to know that we are talking as about flat glass, which is somewhat different for some of the uses. So
Not get crushed up.
it gets crushed up, but some of them have laminations on them. Makes the game a little bit different. I know some recyclers don't accept that, right? But
Yeah, the windshields are through the chair, the windshields are harder to recycle because of the lamination and the layers that are in there. So,
great. That was gonna be one of my questions if I got a chance, was what does pane dash glass mean? So there you go. It's a type of glass. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just another little detail on that. So United does take them both, but because the laminated front windshield have that coating, it's harder, so it's more expensive. So it'd be an interesting question to pose to some of these interested parties to see whether they would have capacity for that or not. Those would all be questions we would explore.
Put you on the list. Okay, so I have Pop Jackman Woodward, I think. So,
Thank you,
Director Pop.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendation for discussion purposes.
So,
That's in order. It's moved and seconded. Go ahead, Director Pop.
No, great discussion, and I fully support that.
Thank you. Director Jackman.
I was gonna move it one, but also then comment to it. New West in Calgary, there was New West recycling or gypsum board in New Westminster in the seventies, decades ago. They had some runoff control issues. And almost all of that at that time went into a big, huge lime bog in Burns Bog, a big pit in Burns Bog. So we're well ahead of that. The other long-term practice is drywallers and just cut the offcuts into little bits and put them in between studs in the wall, bury them for the renovators to come along later, and, you know, with extra weights, so. It's about time we start doing their
Recycling,
thing.
recycling use, what is that?
Never mind.
Postponed. Director Woodward, please go ahead. We have a motion on the floor that's moved and seconded. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, you're new again? Online? I'm Todd, sorry. My curiosity is around, you know, some of these recycled material like glass. I remember hearing that, one of the problems was that there wasn't actually like a proper market for glass and it's very heavy, and so, it wasn't really like that sought after. But I was wondering, in your experience, are those markets now picking up? Are recycled materials like just in glass actually having more value in the system? Are there still a struggle to find value for these products?
Through the chair, there'll probably be some other people want to chime in on this, but I'm not super up to date on the marketing or the market aspect of glass, because what we're talking about is using it as a concrete additive.
Right.
Recycle. Yeah, drywall is, so New West Gypsum, and they still do exist in New Westminster. It's the same company. They've been doing this recycling for a long time, and I think it's a good business model for them because they manufacture drywall. So I think it's quite straightforward from that perspective. So locally, I think it's continuing to be a stable market.
Good. Thank you so
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and one supplemental to that. Go ahead, Alex.
Yes, through the chairs to speak in glass, they use it for a variety of different products, depending on what market is available at that point. So they use it as a glass aggregate to different types of backfill. They'll use it in concrete. They use it for sandblasting, and a few other things.
Those are the ones. Okay, thank you very much.
We probably should clarify through the chair, when we talk value of these materials, without a net subsidy for transport and maybe even tipping fee, these materials are typically not self-sustaining, right? That's always a cost to collect, to transport, and maybe to process.
All right, I'll call the question on the recommendation with 3 and furthers, as I see. All those in favor? Is there any opposition? Seeing none, thank you for the education. Scientific class we are going into. Thanks, Todd, very much. Connie, hello. You're gonna take over this seat, beautiful. This is a contract extension, household hazardous waste events, tire RDCK. Connie, take it away, please.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Through the chair today, I'm presenting about the contract extension with Environmental 360 Solutions. So in 2023, the RDCK published RFP, request for proposal to procure a contractor for hazardous waste collection events for the next 2.5 years, starting from June 1st, 2023 till November 30th, 2025, which is now expired. Then RDCK awarded A360 Solutions for this contract. And now we are up for either extend the contract, or we can publish another RFP to procure a new contractor. So in this report, staff is recommending to extend the contract with E360 for the term starting December 1st, 2025 to November 30th, 2026. There are a couple of reasons to support this recommendation. So as you can see in table 1, compared to 2022 volume of non-EPR hazardous waste materials and also the traffic counts, you can see a significant increase since 2022 all the way to 2025. And in 2023 and 2024, the RDCK extended the hours of operation for the Kristen events due to high volume of materials and traffic. And also in 2025, 2025, the RDCK added a spring event in Creston, again due to high demand from the public. And H360 was able to accommodate their schedule, staff, fleet, and equipment, and all the supplies required for this service, and also all the additional labor required for the extended hours of operation and the volume and traffic into the event for each year. So that was amazing to see how much level of like really high level of service they provided. And on top of that, financial considerations, as you can see in table 2, compared to 2022 annual total price, H360 is kind of staying either lower or around the same, despite the hours of operation amendment, and also a significant increase in the volume of non-EPR hazardous waste materials. And as you can see in the table 2, the total contract price is now $376,723, which is $57,259 more than we estimated originally. However, again, this is including all these changes since 2022. And table 3 also shows the breakdown of the cost for disposal and the labor for each subregion. And as you can see, pretty much everything is staying within or around the allocated budget for each year, for each subregion. And the total estimated cost for 2026 events now will be $132,025 plus GST, based on the 2025 cost, plus an estimated CBR increase of 2.4%. So the risk of this recommendation is if we go through RFP, we could find another contract that would be lower price or more competitive price for the RDCK. However, from the recent procurement for the Nelson Leafs Eco-Depot's hauling contractor RFP, we found that the H360 provided the most competitive price anyways, and all these candidates for this RFP could be the similar competitors. So therefore, going through another RFP may not be effective to find another contractor who will provide the similar or higher level of service with more competitive price for the RDCK. So staff recommend to extend the contract for this term. And I just don't think I should go through the recommendations by line, so it's stated in the report. Yes. So this is from me today. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
On the floor.
So you're moving the recommendation, option 1, which is to extend it. Is there a seconder? It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes, we have discussion. Go ahead. Director McFadden.
Great. Thank you. So I just have a couple questions on it. So the plan was to have an Eco Depot in Casper this fall, like half fall. And now it sounds like in here that you're not even anticipating having it for the full calendar year of next year. So my question is, why are we now at maybe well over a year delay? And what happens if we do get one? Like, I would like for community-wise, I get a lot of pushback. I have one gentleman come probably every other council meeting to ask when this is gonna happen. And I gave him the original date. And now they said it's delayed to hopefully the new year and they'll have one by spring. Now it's looking like we're waiting a whole year. So 2 questions of why is this taking so long? And the second question would be, and there might be a good reason for it, so I'm not saying there isn't. And the second question would be, what happens if we get it earlier with this contract? Does that mean we're decreasing it by whatever they would be picking up in Castlegar, or are we just paying them set amount no matter what?
The chair, if I can. So the contract does allow for us to add or remove location. So should one of the 3, so the request for expression of interest for the Eco Depots for Creston, Castlegar, and Nakusp, it has been posted. So we expect early in the new year to have results of that. Pending the interest, we may go to a request for proposal, and then also would consider costing for having a depot of sorts at one of our facilities that we would operate in-house. So this information will be coming to you in 26. The budgets are designed so that with the expectation that we would have the events in 26, certainly the spring one in Creston, but likely all of the fall ones as well, because by the time getting everything established, it's questionable that we'd be able to get them operational by September. But if they are, they're in the same account, so the funds that are associated with an event can be reallocated to a depot operations if we're able to do that transition in time.
And if I may add to that, we have even chosen, I believe it was with the startup of the Leafs Depot, to still hold an event because we anticipated the depot to be in the first months of operation to be overwhelmed because of the amount of materials being out there. So we will come back when we know more about that success of the request for expression of interest. After that, we know if we have 1, 2, 3 candidates. If we have only one, we could potentially, with direction from this group here, enter in direct negotiation with that interested party to accelerate things. But they ultimately would need time to set up their facility.
When does the proposal close?
After the late week.
There's your answer. We'll know more
Or they-
late February.
Sorry, for the expressive interest, and then what you're saying is, if there's more than one proponent that applies or says yes, then you have to vote for proposal and then vet that and then go for it. And then I guess my question would be, is there a reason we didn't just vote for proposal and we've actually done expression of interest first?
Through the chair, we've done both the expression of interest and the request for proposal in Creston, that neither one were successful. It just appeared that this was a way to garner the potential interest. It's hard for, it's a tricky service to put a bid out on. And so by understanding who's available or interested, what kind of facilities and operations they have, it would make us design an RFP that is reasonable and understands the scope and have the sort of that engagement with potentially interested parties. It felt like it was going to be a little bit too hard to develop a scope for a request for proposal that especially someone who doesn't already say operate a bottle depot or something where they've kind of got a facility that would just tie into this nicely to develop it from scratch. This will give us an opportunity to work with interested parties.
Thank you.
Welcome. We have a motion, I believe, on the floor for, and so we have no one else on the speakers list. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Is there any opposition? Seeing none, thank you very much, Connie. We'll move on to, thank you. We'll move on to 3.4, contract extent. Oh, okay. Wood waste reduction services. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. So similar to the last report, this is an established contract that was awarded to Fraser Excavating for the wood grinding services for our yard and garden and waste wood. It was designed as a 2-year contract with 3 1-year extensions. So this is the first of those extensions. We have made a significant change in our wood acceptance process, and so we did see a reduction in cost in 25. We are still working through all of the ways that we'll collect the different clean wood, dirty wood, and yard and garden, and we have some concerns about the dirty wood, because right now the dirty wood is going in with the mixed waste. That change was partway through the year. Some of the equipment does not love the wood, and so there might be a few sites that we will want to stockpile, grind, and then do the transport. So it's the estimated value you'll note is 17,000, which is over what we saw in 25. We kind of expect, because that separation happened through the year, that we would be on track with that or even less, but we kept it up to that 17, depending on how we land with some of these locations. As an example, the cusp has lots of space to store different materials, and the hauling of a ground wood waste is much more efficient than the chunks of the up to 4 feet in length. The dirty wood still will be going into the landfill. We don't have an end use for that, but the chipping of it could make both the wear and tear on the new compactors less, and then just the hauling. So we're still investigating that. So just in case you were wondering why the proposed value for 26 is higher, it's just an up to amount as we're still going through this transition. It would be, we measure that using our drone system, and we pay by cubic meter. So the cost is by what we actually grind. And those volumes changed, and that depends on what people bring us, what kind of projects move through the district. So it can be quite variable based on what's going on in the region.
Can I have someone move the recommendation? It's moved and seconded. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to get it on the floor quickly. I'm sorry, impulse controls week today. So it's on the floor. Is there any? Yes, go ahead.
Just have a question, not anything about that, it's about contracts. So this contract was up September 1st, the last contract was up December 1st, I get it that it's still in December, but why is it taking so long for it to get to us?
Through the chair, we don't do wood grinding through the winter. It's generally an annual thing. So essentially we are getting the setup for next year. And I can just speak to the sheer workload of the department, and we're honestly getting these things to you as fast as we can.
Supplementary, that's not really what I was looking at, is that this is September 1st, 2025. So this contract. So I get it if we were looking at for next year, September 1st, 2026, but this is backdated, is what I've read, unless it's incorrect. So I'm just, like, I understand that there's workload, but this would have had to happen no matter what. It's happening now. Is there something that we're needing to trigger? And this is not just at the RDCK, it happens in municipalities, is that contracts seem to overlap and we get away from them. And then us sitting as a board or any council, we sit there and we go, okay, we feel pressure that we must go with that. So I'm just wondering, how do we make sure that we're bringing the contract before it comes to this point? That's all.
Yeah, through the chair. So we won't be doing any more grinding until next fall. So the backdating it to just this past September, a couple of months ago, like I guess I don't, we're continuing the contract for next year's work. I mean, the other thing is getting this contract and the last item, these are really good examples of additional work on staff and director time, where you've already approved this contract, you've already approved this in budgets. Like, this is a administrative exercise that we have to go through that it's cumbersome, and it adds to the workload and the time spent at this table, I have to admit.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Is there any opposition? Seeing none, it's the recommendation passes. And we now move to item 3.5, financial plan amendment, Creston Compost Facility Leachate Pond Management. And this is coming from Elaine, who I believe, yeah, there she is. Hello, Elaine, welcome.
Hello. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, I can.
Thank you. And through the chair, I have to apologize for my voice. I'm quite hoarse right now. So if you can't hear me at any point, just please jump in and I'll do my best to speak up. So this
You're free, Elaine, do a shortened version. And you know, no disrespect will be taken if you shorten the version. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll keep it quite short. This report just provides an update on the Creston Compost Facility Leachate Pond dewatering costs, and also includes a request for approval of a financial plan amendment. So contact water at the facility is collected in a leachate pond. Sorry. That water is then recycled back into the composting process as much as possible. But during periods of heavy rain, like we've had a lot this fall, the pond can reach capacity quite quickly, and then it needs to be dewatered. Each dewatering event can cost, on average, $10,500. And most of that is from disposal fees at the town of Creston septage ponds. So far in 2025, dewatering costs have totaled $51,272, which is significantly higher than previous years. It's assumed there could be 2 more dewatering events before year end, at a possible additional cost of $21,500. This would then result in a potential deficit of $31,109 in that contracted services account. So staff are recommending adding a 15% contingency to that projected deficit amount, just to bring the total financial plan amendment request to $35,775. This amendment is proposed to be funded by a transfer from Service S186 East Resource Recovery with a corresponding reduction to S186 regular reserves. And I will end it there.
Thank you. Well summarized. Director Jackman, Director Vandenberg. Director Jackman, go ahead.
I was gonna move the recommendation.
It's moved.
And small comment,
Yes, it's seconded as well, so please go ahead.
I recognize we have a 2026 budget item to look at pond expansion and or whatever else. And I know we're all happy to see our groundwater recharge this fall, but we do ask yes. My regret is that our 2/3 grant for building this facility didn't include a bigger pond, but there was someone else's consultant advice. And I understand from our staff that we challenge that in basic pond, so, and there's a similar issue with pollution. So we have to do this, and master plan amendment and the other conversation about expand the pond or some other way to deal with the water as next year. I'm good with that.
Great, thank you. Speaking in favor of the motion moved. Go ahead, Director Vandenberg.
Yes, thank you. This question is to Cooley. And it's just really, can we arrange to have a tour of the facility? I think it was offered before, but some of us didn't get there because we are talking about quite a large capital expenditure there. And to go in and visit, unless you're saying that we can just knock on the door and say, hey, how's it going? But we'd like to have I'd like to suggest we do a walkthrough, a visit of the site, if I may.
The organics?
No, the retention pond, like the septic, say, because that's what you're talking about, the overfill.
Septic facility
Yeah,
at the town of Creston
Yeah.
wastewater facility.
Yes, thank you.
Special request and it was granted. That's very good. That's great.
Mr. Chair, that would go through Director Elton to town to arrange that tour to the town facility. But I'd also encourage us to visit our facility at the composting site and its pond stuff. Whatever makes sense, whether or not,
Great.
which would there be before.
Okay.
No, not today.
Good. Well, thanks for that clarity and we're not organizing it today, so that we got some time. That's great. Okay, that's the end of the speakers list. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Is there any opposition? Seeing none. Now, I'm looking at I'm gonna suggest we take a break for 5 to 7 minutes, and then we'll come back and hear Heidi's report. Thank you. Okay.
Have you been out there? Probably because I was the whole.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, we're reconvening, if you will.
Use the
Unexpected break proved to be valuable for a lot of networking here. New deals were made, new connections were made. It was lovely to see. And we're settling nicely, and I can see a thumbs up. I assume we can be heard online. Yeah, great. Thanks, everyone. So we'll move on now to item 3.6, which is a verbal report. So I assume Heidi's there. I can't see you. Heidi. Oh, yeah, there. Take it away.
Great, thanks, and through the chair. This item has been brought to this meeting at the request of the Central Resource Recovery Committee Chair for JRC consideration. On December 2nd, City of Nelson staff presented a workshop on the pre-treated organics program, along with a staff report that recommended expanding the food cycler program citywide. As some sections of the report contain data provided by the RDCK staff requested a copy of the report be shared prior to public release for internal review. City of Nelson staff shared the report one day prior to release to the public, and RDCK staff completed a technical review of the report, submitting a response the following day to provide feedback and clarification on RDCK waste composition data that was misrepresented in the report. As the City of Nelson's decision resulting from the recommendation in this report has impacts on the RDCK's organics and landfill operations, RDCK staff also shared specific concerns around unaddressed bias of data in the report, and that the primary recommendation does not appear to be supported by the data presented. To be clear, RDCK staff are fully supportive of the implementation of municipal organics diversion and agree with the City of Nelson that the food cycler is a technology that can successfully divert some organics from the waste stream. However, in the interest of maximizing the success of regional organics diversion, and as the resulting decision will have cost repercussions that impact RDCK taxpayers, including those in the City of Nelson, RDCK staff wanted to be transparent of our concern that the recommendation to expand the food cycler program citywide does not align with the data presented in the report. There are three main goals to organics diversion: reducing potent greenhouse gas emissions related to organic waste decomposing in a landfill, reducing landfill airspace consumption, and reducing wildlife attraction in residential areas. RDCK staff recognize that the success of any diversion program is contingent upon the level of engagement and participation. The City of Nelson report provides no objective data showing that the food cycler is going to be more effective, more or even equally effective as a green bin program in relation to the goals listed above, or that it can achieve higher rates of participation. Maximizing organic waste diversion from landfills is a top priority of the RDCK, an imperative shared by the City of Nelson. Any organics diversion is absolutely better than no organics diversion, but cost repercussions of the City of Nelson's decision on their method of organics diversion are twofold, in that they will affect the operational and cost efficiency of the central compost facility, which will impact all taxpayers responsible for cost sharing and service S120, the Central West Waste Compost Service. This has been discussed at length in past JRC meetings, and the Resource Recovery Manager can speak more to it if requested. Even minor differences in the prevention of landfill gas emissions at Udushinya landfill could have extremely significant cost implications as we near regulatory thresholds to manage landfill gas in the RDCK. RDCK staff have been in communication with city staff to discuss the evaluation of the pre-treated organics program and provide feedback on the interpretation of the life cycle analysis, as well as other factors such as wildlife impacts, data analysis for the estimation of diversion rates, operational viability, and costs. City of Nelson staff are planning further evaluation and will be returning to their City Council with more information in February of 2026.
That's it?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Comments? No, we will just answer questions.
So we, as Heidi mentioned, I did ask that after my attendance at the City of Nelson Council meeting, which the library presented, and then this was subsequently presented, and the council gave me freedom of the floor. Thank you. I talked to staff at the RD the day after, and I learned that there had been a RDCK staff response to the City of Nelson staff report that was referenced at the previous meeting that I had attended the night before, and felt that because of the implications of the city of, as Heidi mentioned, City of Nelson not bringing feedstock to our Salmo site, and the volumes and thus the revenue that does come from that I thought it would be valuable for the RDCK to hear perspective on this important issue. I myself have stayed out of the City of Nelson's business when they made the decision at the last minute to change course and go to the food cycler program. We said that, you know, as I said at the meeting, we're glad that they have a high priority to remove organics from the landfill. So that's the backstory of why I had requested Heidi to give us information in regard to this gap that's happening at Central. Is there anything I misstated or you'd like to?
No, I think the essential piece is that the regional district, more so Central, but to some degree as well, the Western sub-region are not isolated from that decision-making in regards to the financial contributions to the compost service that the two sub-regions have together. And I think that's the reason why that discussion is important, and that city residents are fully aware that that's a component to be considered in the overall financial consideration, let alone the considerations around greenhouse gases that were well characterized in the two studies that were done relating to this.
Great. So that's the background. Thank you, Heidi. And of course, we're open to questions or comments. And Councillor Woodward,
Thank you.
please go ahead.
So thank you, Heidi and Uli and Tom, Chair, for being there. I think it's been a long process, many years. We've been essentially running a pilot. We've been working with Food Cycler Science. The product, the Cycler product, has been improving greatly over the years. And I just want to say, when I was at the last meeting when all this reporting was given to council, I did read the reports about 3 times. It is complex. There's a lot of vectors going on here. At the end of it, my sense was that the Food Cycler program and the Green Bin program, moving forward, the costs are, and the reports state that, are essentially 1.5 million. Whichever way we go. The one sort of challenge I think is that there's built-in what do we call that? Built-in carbon in the construction of the food cycles. That is but there's also what's the term I'm looking for? It's something carbon. Embodied carbon, thank you. So there's embodied carbon in the cyclers, and there's embodied carbon in all the plastic bins and everything that we would have to get for a green bin program. So there's embodied carbon in all of it. And the price points are similar. And I think council sent it back for referral for more information. I think the general sense I got at the table is we're sort of like, there's good things and there are pros and cons in both programs. And I'm just sort of reflecting on what I experienced at that meeting. One of the big things is that by not having a Green Bin program and having a Food Cycler program, we're not dealing with actual physical waste on the street. because we've been battling and trying to deal with, pest management and wildlife attractants. So I think one of the parts of the food cycle program that's important to council is that we don't have food waste out and about, weekly. I just want to finish my saying.
Yep.
So that was one of the pieces, and I think, but the other piece that council was struggling with was the 10 to 20 year viewpoint of what's this gonna look like 20 years down the road? And is this appliance, it's essentially an appliance like a microwave or a stove or a dishwasher, it's essentially another appliance in the home. And the primary functions happening is removing water from the product. So we're not shipping water out and about in our region. So I just want to say that I appreciate everything that's been said here, but I do feel like it's very much, we're not quite sure at the council which way to go. Send it back, it'll come back to us and we're gonna have to make a decision.
Thank you. Thank you. Well said. Amy.
Yes, thanks, and I think I'll maybe ask Matt if he could come to the table. He had some good stats at a conversation we had with the city staff earlier today. So the comment about getting food off the curb or waste off the curb is that the food cycler, depending on what you're doing with the end product, still actually puts like essentially a food product in people's yards, and so how that's managed could still have a significant attractant level. And then Matt had some stats on curbside and other areas of the district and their success with their wellness.
Right, yes, through the chair, I think the point, Andrew Wilson was referring to is just that, green bin programs do not inherently, create additional wildlife attractant. In fact, in BC, we have the Bear Smart community accreditation. There are 12 communities in BC that have that accreditation. Of those 12, 9 have green bin programs. So I think the point to be made is simply that green bin programs and safe communities and wildlife are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the vast majority of communities, including the city of Casper, that obtain that accreditation have green bin management, conventional organic management systems. I think that's the main intent, and that indeed dehydrated ground food waste and promoting the self-management of that material in people's yards does not necessarily remove the attractiveness of that material as a wildlife and other pest attractant. It simply puts that material into the hands of people to manage, and whether or not they do that properly is up to the delivery of the program and the sort of like maintenance of that information. Anecdotally, I think it's a mixed bag, as any system, but I think that in that category, that factor for the decision, it's important to keep in mind agreements and wildlife safety issues.
And Amy, back to you.
Yeah, I guess so the staff of the two groups have been very engaged with each other, lots of information sharing. It's been a very good relationship. And RDCK staff, we've reviewed the two different studies that have been completed and provided some of the data that was utilized in them. And it, both of the studies demonstrate, and clearly a food cycler can't accept all the material that goes into a curbside, and it can't accept yard and garden. So a green bin program clearly will get more diversion. So that's one of the main pillars. And the other one is the greenhouse gas reductions, and the studies have that the life cycle assessment demonstrated that the food cycler does not result in the same greenhouse gas reductions. So, staff, costing, there's so many variables in costing, and I think that there's a lot of things still to be worked out as to what that comparison is. And the way of the system is delivered, and like understanding that the city of Nelson has a very challenging geography, and delivery of a curbside system might be more of a factor than has been expressed in some of the reports that we've looked at. Although we have even say like the city of Roslyn has a curbside semi-automated system, so there is certainly demonstration that it can occur. So 100% not our decision. but it does have an impact on the cost of the A120 service. The facility was designed with the three partners involved, and it has a lower tonnage going through that facility than expected. So the cost per ton of managing materials through that facility is higher because we're not at full capacity. And those are costs that are still borne by the central subregion and the City of Nelson residents, regardless of whether or not you send material to us for costs for composting. And that was one thing we discussed with your staff today. And so those two remain, whether you bring it to us or not. And then, there should be a cost reduction because there's higher tonnage going to the facility if there is raw organics brought from the city. How much of a cost reduction in that subsidy? I can't say at this point, but it would reduce the reliance on the subsidy of the two subregions to make that facility or that service balance.
And it's supplemental, sure. Just to add to what you said.
Yes, definitely.
Just that from the reports, it said that we have to have a third party collection. That's what the report was saying, if I remember, so that's the cost that the city would have to bear. Because I think it is that we don't, I wish I had like tighter grasp on this, but we don't have the actual vehicle to pick up the waste, so we'd have to do a third party, so that would be another cost that we have there. And it would have to be weekly pickup, because you can't do 2 weeks.
Yeah, through the chair, we had a conversation with your staff today and I asked the question because the study was done with continuing with your dual stream recycling composting every other week, or recycling and garbage, sorry, and then a contracted weekly organic separating. A more efficient system and one that's more of the common delivery system across the province is you collect you have 3 stream in one service and you collect compost weekly and then you alternate garbage. Staff explained that that's just not something you're at right now, and it could be something that you would move to down the road, or it'd have to kind of balance what you're doing with your staff and equipment otherwise. So it doesn't have to be that way, and it's not actually very efficient to do it that way.
A lot of effort.
Yeah,
A lot of cost.
exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I do have a speakers list, so I'll go to Mayor McFadden, Director, and then Watson. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, through the chair, you said a few of the things that from our own experience, because I went from I've been in council to not having it to having it. And we have found all of our pests and all of our wildlife gone drastically down, not up. Since that, we are very smart as well, so we haven't had an issue with that. Probably because of how, there's a lot of education around, most of them are using disposable or organic bags, they're freezing it, and they're only putting out the data they're actually, right? So you're getting all of it out of the system very quickly. And you're also getting all your yard waste. So it's actually helped tremendously the city of people dumping all their grass clippings and all of their, which is a lot of fire risk. So it has had a positive impact on a lot of that because people are putting their grass in there, which is mixing with the food, which is actually decreasing smell and all that kind of stuff. So it has been a tremendously good thing for our city in that way. The downside is the cost, and for the same reasons that we went ahead with it, intending the city of Nelson was going to be a part of it. So that has been a much higher cost than anticipated because of that projection. So I guess my director hat, and partially I get the city, but my director hat would say I would hope that if both are comparable, that the city of Nelson would be looking at the impact of the region, not just themselves. So if both are comparable and you're saying, hey, both are equal in the cost and in delivery and all of that, at the city of Nelson, which with your counterparts that have lots of conversation of that we start thinking more regional than as individuals, because I think as regional 66,000 people, we can actually have a bigger impact than us as individuals. And so, but that means that everyone's on that same page of we're thinking regionally. So looking at how those decisions are going to impact the whole region and not just the city of Nelson. And if you're saying and it looks like they're equal, then maybe we lean towards what vector, as you called it, what factor does the negative impact of the rest of the region have to do with that decision? And I would hope that would be a part of your guys' conversation. I know it was the city, but we almost pulled out because the city of Nelson pulled out. Because we're like, can we take on this extra cost And we actually chose to stay in so that it wouldn't be a negative effect on the rest of the region as a council. And that was a very hard conversation. So I would hope that, the city of Nelson would factor that into your guys' discussions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Watson.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible, Heidi, last month you provided a really fantastic report on the textiles one, and your verbal report on this one was really helpful. I haven't seen the Nelson report, so I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to request just via email to get her notes on that. Is that possible, or is that inappropriate? I have 3 questions, by the way. That's my first one.
I think you can share it by email these pictures.
Thank you. It's just helpful because it's, in terms of tracking stuff, it's really difficult. Thank you. Really appreciate Heidi's notes on that. So my 2 other points, one is rats are a problem. Like, they really, really are a huge problem. I appreciated hearing from City of Castlegar that that's gone down, the notes that Matt made regarding the bear accreditation program. We've been a bear center community for so many years that I don't think we bothered with accreditation. We just had to by default of safety. But that being said, rats are a major problem in Caslo and the surrounding areas, not just Caslo. I say that as a resident, not because I'm pointing at Caslo as a problem. I'm one of the problems in Caslo. With that, so I have 2 questions. One, through understanding the finances on the food cycler, but the first one is just asking, and it can go offline. I'd like to work with Caslo and the local climate change group that we met with to really deep dive into how can we work on an organics program up the lake. So I just want to flag it as a potential conversation at our shared services meeting. And that Mayor Hewitt and I can talk about that offline, but I want to flag that I think organics might be one of the ways, an organics program might be one of the ways we really address the rat issue. So that's a connection piece for me. My actual question, sorry, that is, correct me if I'm wrong, I heard that the food cycler program was 1.5 million.
To move forward, so the reports were saying, like, from this point on, we're gonna go green bin or food cycle, it's basically 1.5 million.
Thank you. Supplemental to that is, I believe, to build the organics facility was 1.5 million.
Elaine, I think we were in the 2.5 or 2.6, yeah. And this is actually, the 1.5 is your garbage recycling and organics combined, and that's an annual cost.
It's just interesting financially that I think the benefit out of all of this is you could probably provide some really good stats to other communities exploring this, but financially, man, if we spent a lot of money trying to figure this out between all of us.
Right. There are dozens and dozens of communities that are actually in a kind of holding pattern. They're looking at what we're doing and Food Cycle Science is doing, because they are like, could this be an option for our community? Because they don't have the money to build a full windrow organics site. That maybe a system like this would work for small communities. So we're running this pilot, and it's essentially like this information is going out. Other communities will look at that.
And sorry, I meant actually,
3 more?
well, no.
I'm joking. Go ahead, supplemental for sure. You always.
Based on what I'm hearing, I would disagree that that's a good direction for small communities to go in, that we're having to rehydrate and still do something with the product. And that's the miss that what I'm suggesting is that other communities looking at this should be looking at the broad picture of everything we've considered. We've spent upwards of 4 million between all of us trying to figure out the organics problem. We must have a lot to provide on do's and don'ts between all of us. That's it.
Thank you. I'm gonna just ask a quick question. Does the dried product from a food cycler going directly into the landfill produce methane when it gets wet?
Through the chair, so the food cycler end product has to go through that anaerobic breakdown. And so if it doesn't, it goes through an anaerobic, it will still produce the same amount of carbon dioxide as if it was in, sorry, I shouldn't swap around. It still produces the same amount of carbon dioxide the methane that it would produce in the landfill. And so even the food cycler study demonstrated that there's still, the City of Nelson study demonstrated there's still users at this point, and whether or not with regulation or incentives that changes, there's still material that people would put in their garbage because they don't have another way to manage it. Or they could put it in a backyard heap and not manage it properly. And so that, in that case,
And city laws.
yeah, but if it goes to the city drop-offs, then it comes to the compost facility and it goes through that breakdown process. So that material would have that conversion from methane to carbon dioxide and still realize those greenhouse gas reductions. But if the end product's not managed properly, and so that, I brought this up a number of times because the city's studies assume 100% emission reduction by the organics that are diverted in the food cycler. And that is incorrect if 100% of that is not going through that process. And if a portion of it is in fact producing the methane. So the point of that is that it would be very important to use that tool as an educational point to the users, that it's very important to manage that end product properly, because otherwise you're kind of defeating the purpose.
Director Jackman, I jumped the queue in the chair, right? Go ahead, Director Jackman.
Two points. One, if you know, can't do anything with piece of paper, but when you download this farm agenda, this link works to the city Nelson report.
Oh,
80
thank you.
acres or something. It's a big one. But there's been some raised share, we have to have one.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
But it's just the first few pages speaks volumes is sort of the general assumptions. The other point, Director McFadden said much more diplomatically than what I could ever say. We sit here as a regional board. The city of Nelson exists with its tax base, commercial tax base, because people who live all around here come here and eat, buy groceries, use the services, support this city, and need to learn to be a board and realize that no municipality is an island. And the worst thing you can do is not consider all of your neighbors when you sit at council and make a decision. And I don't agree with the city's leaning, they haven't from the beginning. Fully appreciate what both Castlegar and Creston have done, because they recognize the greater good, and that's the path we're on. So, thanks.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to now end this discussion. I am going to end it. And Director Woodward, it was definitely not intended in any way to be directed at you as a spokesperson or anything, okay? So I hope you didn't take it that way. It was that I felt that this was finally time to have this important discussion, as last year I didn't bring it forward because council said we'll do one more year trial. And when I went to the meeting last week, I realized that your council needed to hear from us, and we definitely needed to hear more. And then I find out that, you know, our staff has been dialoguing and we needed to know that conversation. So it wasn't targeted at you, it was for this board to have a lot of information. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, staff, and thank you to Heidi, and Matt, and staff, and everyone. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 3.7. And this is the illegal dumping thing, so I'll let staff lead us in a conversation to try and get somewhere with what we're asking of someone about something. Basically, I think that's what we're saying.
So, through the chair, we, we continue to do some work with, collecting information and looking at costs and looking at a partnership with the Wilderness Watch Society that came and spoke at a couple of meetings ago as a delegation. And at that meeting, then follow up, we had a request to draft a letter to the province. My understanding is that it was to essentially lobby them to do more about managing illegal dumping on Crown lands and not to download that to the regional district. I guess we just wanted some clarity on the scope of that letter, and we didn't have anything drafted, so we could have had some points to speak to here. We did start to do some investigation, and we're doing some investigation about the responsibility and the regulation that oversees it. We haven't come to a lot of clear, concise answers quite yet. And the way that our resource recovery talks about it is supporting illegal dumping. We were very specific in the plan about not associating tipping fees and their, supportive cleanups had 2 or 3 items I don't have in front of me, so I didn't pull it up, but it was essentially like assisting with, for the reporting of it and various things, but it did not, it committed a bit of staff time and it committed some support with that reporting app so we can sort of track illegal dumping stats and identify sites for cleanup. And so I think there's more for us to do on that side in determining, say, legal responsibility for illegal dumping in the area. We are obviously, as a regional district, responsible for managing waste that's brought to us, but investigating sort of what our commitments are beyond that and with helping to manage illegal dumped materials. So that part we'll still continue to investigate and collaborate with our other colleagues in Coast Waste Management and our Southern Interior Waste Managers and some of the other waste groups that we work with. And when we look at what other regional districts are doing with illegal waste, there's a huge range. There's some that are very much like us, very, we deal with illegal dumping that ends up at our sites. And aside from that, it's discretionary grants that could support these cleanups. Otherwise, there's some though that have line items in their budget that do manage cleanups and they have an ongoing financial support of doing those. So there's not a consistent status quo for what's being done across the province. So we'll continue to investigate this with our colleagues and what we can find in legislation and guidance. But essentially, if we're ready to prepare a letter for the province about their commitment to having the RAP line and doing cleanups and things like that and what they're going to bring to the table, that's what we wanted some clarity if that's all the scope we're doing right now, or if you want us to wait until we have these other items more fleshed out.
And since it's a public meeting, the resource recovery plan supports the cleanup of illegal dumping, not the illegal dumping.
Right.
All right, so we have a speakers list and maybe ultimately we'll come to an answer to the question. So I have Director Watson and Director Main. Go ahead, Director Watson.
Yeah, a couple notes. One of the follow-ups, and I appreciate you've looked into this from that delegation with clarifying our responsibility. They figured garbage, no matter where it was our jurisdiction. And I really dug into that one. I did look it up. I talked to Stuart a bit about it. And the best kind of short answer I could get is we're responsible for what comes to our sites. We don't go to your home and get your garbage. Similarly, we don't go into the forest or up the FSRs to get the garbage and bring it to us. So while I didn't hear from the delegation, I did tell them to reach out to me. I have set aside funds for certain things. I was going to provide that as a short, this is how I see it. And I think getting that clarification and even providing that wherever we can publicly in terms of our website would be really important, because we are so often considered whatever's in the boundaries of our jurisdiction is our responsibility. Water is a great example, not. So just wanted to note that. I think in terms of the letter, I'm grateful you're doing a bit of research, understanding what other regional districts are doing, which the resource recovery plan did provide a bit of a lit review, and I believe the consultants had provided some pretty good overview that informed us in terms of, are we going to provide a budget item on this, or are we going to, what are we going to do about it? And we chose to essentially don't want to subsidize bad decisions. That's my short version of what I heard of the resource recovery plan. But I think being able to have that information and then any updates from who is doing what would be a better place to start with. Where do we take a letter? The only two things in a letter at this time that I would say we're ready to say is we need that RAP line to be available and actually active, like bare minimum. More COs, which would relate to a lot of other things we face in terms of land use that is out of our jurisdiction, even if it's in the geography, it's not our jurisdiction. But that research would be helpful, I think. So I don't think we would write a letter now. It would be great to get that research back, and then that can inform what a letter looks like. I am working with REKB and EK on a meeting with all the chairs next week where we're sharing our shared advocacy. So I'll add this as, have you guys done anything, and make sure you get that. My last note is I was contacted about, a bunch of pipes that were dumped on the side of the road in Allen subdivision, right outside of the village of Caslow. And it was online. People were like, who's gonna pick it up? Whose is it? It was so lovely. You left it there. No one's picked it up. Maybe you want to get it before the snow comes. No one would pick it up. So I went and got it. I was just like, forget it. I'm just gonna go bed it through my truck. It was $6.50 to take it to the dump.
Yeah, sorry, I was just contemplating.
Yeah,
Go on.
and certainly we'll come back with more information. Heidi has started already to do a little bit of investigation, some interesting information. But I think essentially what it boils down to is that we have no obligation for getting involved into this, and have a provincial government that says, even that is crown land, it's not our obligation either, or we don't have the funds, or. So there's a vacancy there that, if left as it is, it will just lead to more illegal accumulation of illegal dumping in the backyards. And I guess we will attempt to see, and with organizations like we had at our last meeting, I think we have a potential tool for a cost-effective measure to counteract some of that. And I think that's worth a consideration overall. And I think it is in line with what the Resource Recovery Plan outlined, and that US directors approved and the ministry approved, that we are supportive of it. How far we are going with that support is a different story, but I think it is similar to the issue about orphan dikes and whatever else you are dealing with, that appears like a download from provincial jurisdiction, but that are urgent issues for our general public.
Thank you, Director May. I do have a speaker's list, but I'll update it after Director May.
Thank you. I appreciate the foregoing conversation that points out, particular aspects of the problem. I have a couple of questions for the purposes of this discussion. Are we differentiating between objects that are being discarded in the woods, differentiating between them and brush and yard waste, often containing highly invasive species being dumped outside of village lands, and increasingly both those categories of discards are being discarded very near to water sources. So that's another, couple of more pieces to the puzzle.
Thanks for adding invasives. Notes being taken.
Yeah, yes.
Director Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair. I was a director on this board when the province mandated that we start charging for waste into our facilities. Before it was free. It was on taxation. And it wasn't free, but it was a taxation opposed to opening your wallet every time you went to the transportation. And one of the items at that time were, what's going to happen to our backyards? What's going to happen to the dumping areas? And the province's representative sat here at this table and said, we're going to look after that. That's our responsibility. That's not going to be your problem. We have mechanisms in place. And the truth is, there are mechanisms in place. But whether they choose, and it's a choice, to implement them or to fund them is the issue. The other issue is a lot of the problems that we're having are the encampments.
Yes.
And they bring stolen items and all kinds of issues. And the province has directed the people responsible for looking after the rangers, saying, you're supposed to only camp for 14 days in one spot in this province. And they said, we're not implementing that anymore. So, again, the garbage piles get bigger.
Oh,
So, it's an excuse. And I mean, I know you appreciate the work that the staff is doing, but it's also a point of who's responsible? Is there a liability to us or to the to their communities? How do we hold their feet to the fire? And if we don't look after this, it's not going to be worth going into our back country.
yeah, well, that highlights exactly what the delegation pointed out to us, right, as they showed their. Oh, yes. go
And
ahead.
one thing we've discussed at this table a few times is the East Kootenays still have no tipping fees for residents. And they still have a similar illegal dumping problem. So I don't think we can blame illegal dumping on, all of the legal dumping anyways on having to charge tipping fees. I think that convenience and blatant disregard for the care of the environment and other residents and a variety of other things. And so evidence of that still occurring.
Yeah. All right, well, I have to end the meeting. No. We're coming to the end of the speakers list. But we have to get people on the road. It's getting dark and we want safe travels. So we will come with a letter eventually, but not right now. But we do have another speaker. Go ahead, Director
Yeah,
Weatherhead.
thank you. I really, Director Payne and Schmidt, covered what my subject matter was, but just a question about discretionary grants, and well, also the fact that you want to include also that there was a recent fire that could have caused a complete wildfire, or rurally that had our local department not, and the customer department not managed it, we would have had a wildfire. So, from the homeless in Camden. So on a waterway. It just meets all the, that's all it wants. So, but, this, my question around discretionary grants is, again, how far do we go with that just to staff? And because, do I help them clean this up with my discretionary grants if the RAP line isn't responding, and then I've got, hazardous waste that the RAP line is not responding to? How do I deal with this in terms of discretionary grant? How far do I go with that? I won't collect that much discretionary fund for investment.
That is the temporary solution right now as we move towards something regional, speaking of regional. And go as far as you can. Yeah, well, it's for the higher good and it is benefiting every taxpayer by doing it. That's my justification, very discretionary in that way. For what it's worth. Okay. So, any other comments, closing arguments, discussions? Okay. Motion, proposed dates, sorry.
You have.
Look-
No, you have.
And public time.
Which
3.8.
Oh, I put a line through it when I was crossing the Director Weatherhead's name. Okay, well, let's do the last thing then.
You have two more things in public time.
Yeah, well, I was gonna go to the dates, but, okay, so, thank you very much. So what are you talking to this?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so 3.8, sorry about that, folks.
So the regional district put in a bid for Recycle BC. So Recycle BC is completely overhauling their delivery service, where they're taking all the logistics in-house. And they've issued requests for proposals for bigger collection facilities. So we call them MRFs, so it's where the all the depot and curbside materials would go to get consolidated before it goes to the final processing facility. And then also these ones called, receiving facilities. So we applied for a receiving facility, to be a receiving facility at Groma Narrows for the City of Nelson's curbside material. That is, we currently have a compactor there, and that curbside material, compacted, goes to the GFL facility in Trail. So we put the bid in as replacing, because that compactor is nearing or at end of life. So we put in an annualized cost for the 5-year term of the contract to replace that compactor and deliver the service with the staff and equipment required. We were unsuccessful in that bid, so we had the final notification. You'll see it attached to the agenda. They did want to follow up with some negotiations or some discussion, and they clarified a few things. Our cost was high. They have a preference for baled material over compacted material. So essentially, at this point, we are carrying on as business as usual, and we would continue to see if there would be potential in the future to become to engage as a receiving facility, and there might be an opportunity to do similar, expand it to not just the City of Nelson, but Caslo's and potentially even some of our depot locations. So we're trying to keep that in the back of our mind when we're on our ongoing assessment of the redevelopment of the Groman. The consolidation of the Lakeside and Groman depots and likely establishment of it at Groman. It's just, I guess at this point, that's where we're gonna have to leave it.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I believe the next item is number 4, which is the dates. Any issues? Yes, go ahead, Director Moon.
Yeah, just a question about September. Was that checked against the UBCM schedule?
Good question. I looked at it for something else and then forgot. Everyone pull their calendars out, please. When is UBCM? When is our board? Because our board moved, I noticed. To the end, almost,
September
right?
13th to 18th.
What is then the next week?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay. Thank you for checking that. It seems like the rest of December, I forgot to check the December one, whether that's a week late or not.
Nature, I think
Yeah, that's a week late. It should be the 8th, the 9th.
December
December is moved to the third week of it. That is correct for our board week. If you look at the board calendar for 2026 has our board meetings that week in
Yeah,
December.
through the chair, if I may, we follow the same structure as current, where we have it in the afternoon after RAC and the day before board. So that's what all those dates, aside from the budget,
I thought.
those ones were selected separately.
Yeah, okay. So do we need to move it and second it?
There's no motion.
No motion, it's just, it'll go to the board and be all filtered through the board.
Yeah, the chair, we submitted those dates to the board
Okay,
calendar.
good. So we're good then, everyone. So that's awesome. Okay, I'll call for public time. Would anyone of the public like to ask a question? There's even room for a comment if you want. I'll pause for a moment while you're unmuting. See you there, Director Page. Didn't give you freedom of the floor. Sorry about that.
Jesse covered it well. You don't need to hear from me.
Thank you, Councilor Bay.
Ex-member, yes. Well, I see nothing there, and it's before 3 o'clock, which meets a criteria that was provided to me by one of our members. Wanted to make sure there could be safe traveling. So without further ado, can we have a motion to adjourn? It's moved and therefore it's done. Thanks, everyone.
Well done, you're here to some math stuff.